Obama appointee Inspector General Horowitz makes his appearance before the Senate today and makes a stunning admission.
Is it correct that you found no evidence that the investigation was motivated by anti-Trump or political bias? Is that correct?
We found no evidence that the initiation of the investigation was motivated by political bias.
Is it correct that you found no evidence that the investigation was motivated by anti-Trump or political bias? Is that correct?
We found no evidence that the initiation of the investigation was motivated by political bias.
Did you hear what he said? I'll explain. While being questioned by Senator Pat Leahy, Inspector General Horowitz had to keep telling him I didn't have anything to do with the Mueller investigation, because apparently that's all Patrick Leahy could get past his dementia Alzheimer's. Your findings in any way discredit the findings of Robert Mueller. First of all, nobody can understand you, Pat. Second of all, wrong topic, wrong hearing, wrong setting, and you guys are like, I don't know. You do understand that the Hindenburg burst into flames in New Jersey and nobody can fly on it anymore, right? You guys need to just come to grips with the fact Russian collusion, that whole myth, it exploded, it's gone. Stop trying to keep making the case. It's done. It's over. But what Horowitz said, there was no political bias in the beginning. Listen to his full statement in context.
Is it correct that you found no evidence that the investigation was motivated by anti-Trump or political bias? Is that correct?
We found no evidence that the initiation of the investigation was motivated by political bias. It gets murkier, the question gets more challenging, Senator, when you get to the FISA and when you get to the attorney's actions, for example, in connection with that FISA.
There was no bias in the beginning when they started spying on the Trump campaign. But then, when they were getting their warrants to continue the spying, well, water gets a little murky. Are you kidding me? Give me a break. This doesn't pass the laugh test. And I'm sorry. This is where I'm going to break with most of the so-called conservative media voices out there, online, on the air, on radio, on TV. This business that, it's the suits, not the boots. In other words, it was some of the upper echelon of the FBI, but there were many within the FBI who were outraged over this invasion of the Trump campaign and what was being done to him. Rush Limbaugh even tried to make that argument today, and I'm sorry, on all of it. It's hogwash. It's garbage. To me, I rate that right up there during the Nuremberg trials, when one after the other, these Nazi war criminals are standing there and basically saying, hey, I was just following orders. You have a moral obligation, a moral order to do the right thing. So maybe some of these so-called men of integrity and women of integrity within the Federal Bureau of Investigation, who may not have been the ones making the decision about invading the Trump campaign because this guy can't become president. We got to make sure this doesn't happen. We're doing this for the good of the country. Knowing and being upset because this is what some of them are saying. At least they're telling it to Rush. They're saying it to Hannity. They're saying it to Mark Levin and other ones behind closed doors that, we were really bothered by what was going on. We saw it and this is awful. And they're speaking off record, off camera, off mic about James Comey being the most corrupt director of the FBI, etc., etc., etc. You know what? It means nothing. You want your job, you want your badge, you want your pension, you want your perks, and you aren't willing to come forward and say and do the right thing because you might get fired. You might get demoted. You might be labeled by the echelon of the deep state that's still there as a troublemaker. So I don't want to hear any more that it's the suits, not the boots. They are all complicit in this. Again, I will quote scripture. To him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, it is sin. If they were truly bothered, if their conscience really got to them, that this was awful, this should not be done to Donald Trump, whether I agree with his politics or not, this is awful. Where's the whistleblower? Where are these so-called boots of the FBI that are so outraged over what a certain few, the James Comey and the McCabe and the Susan Stroke Page and all of these people, if they're the ones that were really orchestrating and making all this happen, which by the way, I'm not doubting that, but that there were all these untold FBI boots on the ground, the ones that are truly committed to the FBI and wanting to do a good job and have integrity. Why are none of them coming forward right now? If for nothing else to say, what James Comey and what some of these people did is an outrage. None of them are coming forward. None of their faces are out there. And I don't want to hear anything about, well, it's going to protect the integrity of the Bureau. Oh, shut up. You're protecting your own backside. You're protecting your own paycheck, your own pension. That's all this is. I don't care if you talk to Hannity off record. I don't care if you talk to Rush off record. Come forward. Until then, I'm not buying it, and you're no different than Nazi collaborators. You may not have pulled the trigger at the concentration camp. You may not have given the order. But you followed orders. You followed orders. You know it's dirty, and yet you said nothing. Let me ask this question. If you were being interrogated by the FBI and you lied to them, do you have any idea what would happen to you? You would go to jail. You would lose your life, your livelihood, your life savings, everything. Ask General Flynn. Ask Roger Stone. These men, Paul Manafort, again, I don't know any of these men personally other than I have interviewed Roger Stone twice for radio. I don't know them. I'm just going to say this, though. Whatever Paul Manafort did over in Ukraine years before he met Donald Trump, did it really warrant his door being kicked in under the cover of darkness? CNN reporters lying in wait as they did also with Roger Stone because they got a tip from the FBI. Guns drawn going in over their little white-collar crimes. Did Roger Stone lie and try to make himself appear more important than and more in the loop on things than he might have actually been? Yeah, he probably did. Roger likes himself. But their big crime, they lied to the FBI. And some of what gets called a lie that you get charged with and go to jail over is if while giving your story, your testimony to them, yeah, on July the 7th, I did la-da-da-da-da, and of course they interrogate you over hours, and as you are retelling the story for the umpteenth time, yeah, on July the 8th, wait a minute, you said an hour and 15 minutes ago it was July the 7th, now you're saying it's the 8th. Yeah, I 7th, 8th, I misspoke. You lied. You get prosecuted, and off to jail you go. Which, by the way, is the bulk of the so-called Mueller indictments. These people that the mainstream lying legacy corporate corrupt media wants to say, see, the Mueller investigation, they indicted people, they sent people to prison, see. Yet the FBI lied. They took a dossier, the Steele dossier, which they knew because, hint, 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 the guy who put it together, Steele, he told them in January of 2017, don't rely on this document. I don't stand by it. I cannot corroborate any of it. After he'd been paid all kinds of money by Hillary Rodham Clinton, her campaign, and the DNC. And where did they pick this document up? From the Ukraine embassy. You do know that an embassy, even if it's in Washington, D.C. or New York City, when you walk in, you are on foreign soil, depending on which embassy and nation is being represented. So let me get this straight. People from the DNC and Camp Hillary went to the Ukraine embassy, which would be considered Ukrainian sovereign soil, to get Oppo research provided from the Russians put together by a British agent named Steele. And yet it's Donald Trump. So they get this document, James Comey, John Brennan. They know it's a farce. A lawyer for the FBI to present this to the FISA court, because again, this all begins because they want a wiretap on Carter Page. He works for the Trump campaign, and he's got Russian contacts, and we know that Russia is meddling in the election. This could be it. And so a judge says, you're right. Here you go. Here's your warrant. What they failed to tell that judge to put any of this in context was that Carter Page worked for the CIA. He was a paid op to Russia. And he never actually met Donald Trump. He just volunteered for the campaign because he liked him. So 2 and 2 make 58 here. And under that lie, and James Comey knew it was a lie, under that lie, they secured a FISA warrant, and they got it 2 more times renewed because a lawyer for the FBI in the FISA application wrote, he is not an asset. And yes, he was. And Ted Cruz broke this all down.
Let me read on page 256 of the OIG report, the final paragraph. Consistent with the Inspector General Act of 1978 and following OIG's discovery that the OGC attorney had altered the email that he sent to the supervising agent, who thereafter relied on it to swear out the final FISA application. So the men and women at home need to know what's happening. A lawyer at the FBI creates fraudulent evidence, alters an email, that is in turn used as the basis for a sworn statement to the court that the court relies on. Am I stating that accurately?
That's correct. That is what occurred.
Now, throughout every one of the filings, DOJ and the FBI didn't inform the FISA court that this was being paid for by the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign. Is that right?
That's not in any of the FISA applications.
So they didn't tell the court that. And it's not like DOJ didn't know. Indeed, one of the senior Department of Justice officials, Bruce Orr, his wife worked at Fusion GPS, the Oppo research company being paid by the DNC. And he became the principal liaison with Steele without telling anyone at the Department of Justice that he was essentially working on behalf of the Clinton campaign. Who at the Department of Justice was, and by the way, several Democrats, it's interesting seeing Democratic senators wanting to defend this abuse of power. Several senators, Senator Feinstein said, and I wrote this down, the FBI didn't place spies in the Trump campaign. Senator Leahy said something similar. Well, that may be true, not spies in the Trump campaign, but reading from your report, in particular page 4 of the executive summary, your report says thereafter the Crossfire Hurricane team used the intrusive techniques, including confidential human sources, to interact and consensually record multiple conversations with Page and Papadopoulos both before and after they were working for the Trump campaign, as well as on one occasion with a high-level Trump campaign official who was not the subject of the investigation. So they didn't place spies in the campaign, but they sent spies to record senior members of the campaign in the middle of a presidential campaign when that candidate was the nominee for the other major party that was the opposing party to the one in power. Is that right?
They send confidential human sources in to do those.
That he was a human resource asset. There's another word for that. It's a short word. It's 3 little letters. Spy. A human resource asset. A spy.
Any responsible leader, when hearing that you're talking about sending in spies and sending in a wiretap on any presidential nominee, what was going on here, this wasn't Jason Bourne. This was Beavis and Butthead.
Boom. There it is. But, sadly, this Beavis and Butthead operation, concocted and orchestrated by the deep state, is a coup attempt against a president. And that's treasonous. But these were just mistakes because there was no political bias. Right, Horowitz?
Is it correct that you found no evidence that the investigation was motivated by anti-Trump or political bias? Is that correct?
We found no evidence that the initiation of the investigation was motivated by political bias.
Hey, thanks so much for watching this rant. I don't know how many more of these I'll be able to bring to you now that YouTube has officially begun the purge. If your channel is considered controversial, if your channel doesn't generate them revenue, and by the way, mine can't because they demonetize all of my videos because of their content, so they can't make any money off me, or they don't want to make any money off me. I have no idea. You could one day come and not only not even see a current video, my channel just may be gone. We'll know more as the calendar page turns into January. So let me encourage you to do a couple things. Keep spreading these videos, get the word out, create the demand. We've got to drive the traffic up. That is viability for us. Also, download these videos. Save them. And we are working to expand our platform, and we'll keep you up to date.